Welcome to the channel Coinexa USA, and today we are diving into something that is going to absolutely blow your mind. Because right now, as you are sitting there watching this video, there is a very real chance that somewhere in your home, tucked inside an old drawer, rattling around in a forgotten coin jar, or maybe even sitting in your wallet right this very second, there is a Washington quarter that could be worth more money than most people earn in an entire lifetime, and we are not talking about a few $100s or even a few $1,000s. We are talking about a coin that has sold for $107 million. Yes, you heard that absolutely correctly. $107 million for what looks, at first glance, like an ordinary, everyday 1986 P. Washington quarter. And I know what you are thinking right now. You are thinking there is absolutely no way. This has to be some kind of mistake. This has to be an exaggeration. But stay with me, because by the time we are done today, you're going to understand exactly why this coin commands that kind of jaw-dropping, life-changing, staggering value. And I also want to tell you right now, before we go any further, that today we are covering not just this incredible 1986 P. Washington quarter, but two more Washington quarters after this one. And I am not going to reveal their values just yet. But I will tell you this much: what comes after this coin is going to make your jaw drop even further. The stories behind the next two coins are so shocking, so unbelievable, so wrapped in mystery and minting drama that collectors have literally lost sleep over them. So do not, under any circumstances, click away from this video, because what is coming next makes this one look like just the warm-up act. Now let us get into the full story of the 1986 P. Washington quarter. And to truly understand why this coin is worth what it is worth, we need to go back to 1986. Back to a time when the Philadelphia Mint was running at full production capacity, churning out hundreds of millions of quarters to meet the enormous demand of everyday commerce across the United States. And in a year like 1986, nobody was paying much attention to their quarters. People were spending them at vending machines, tossing them into parking meters, dropping them into pay phones without giving them so much as a second glance. Because why would they? A quarter was a quarter, 25 cents. Nothing more, nothing less. At least that is what the world believed. But deep inside that busy, bustling Philadelphia Mint, something extraordinary was happening. Something that the Mint workers either did not notice or perhaps noticed and said nothing about. Because errors happen in mints. They have always happened. The sheer scale of coin production makes it mathematically inevitable that some coins are going to come out wrong. And when they do, when a coin slips through the quality control process, carrying with it a mistake that should never have existed, that coin transforms instantly from a simple piece of currency into something almost mythological in the world of numismatics. And the 1986 P. Washington quarter is the absolute crown jewel example of this phenomenon. The specific error that makes the 1986 P. Washington quarter so extraordinarily valuable is a combination of factors that came together in a perfect storm of minting rarity. First, and most dramatically, certain examples of this coin were struck on the wrong planchet entirely. A planchet being the blank metal disc that gets fed into the coin press before it becomes a finished coin. And when a planchet of the wrong size, wrong composition, or wrong metal type accidentally makes its way into the production line, the resulting coin is called a wrong planchet error. And these errors are among the most prized and sought after in all of American coin collecting, because they are so visually dramatic, so immediately obvious to the trained eye, and so undeniably the product of a genuine minting mistake that their authenticity is essentially self-proving when properly examined. But that is not all that makes the 1986 P. Washington quarter exceptional, because layered on top of the wrong planchet error, the most prized examples also carry a dramatic die cap error, where the die itself became capped with a coin during the striking process, and then continued to strike subsequent coins, creating pieces with bizarre, distorted, almost alien-looking designs that bear only a faint resemblance to the original Washington quarter design. And when you combine a wrong planchet with a die cap error and add to that a dramatic off-center strike that pushed Washington's portrait dramatically toward one edge of the coin, you end up with a coin that is so multiply and magnificently wrong that it becomes extraordinarily, almost incomprehensibly right in the eyes of serious collectors. And I want you to really let that sink in, because what we are talking about here is a coin that is valuable precisely because it is defective, precisely because the machinery failed, Precisely because on one extraordinary day in 1986 in the Philadelphia Mint, something went gloriously, beautifully, magnificently wrong. Now let us talk about the discovery of these coins, because the story of how the most valuable 1986 P. Washington quarters came to light is itself the stuff of numismatic legend. Imagine a collector, someone who has been quietly and patiently searching through rolls of quarters for years, someone who has developed the kind of eye that can spot something unusual in an instant, reaching into a roll of coins purchased from a bank and pulling out a quarter that immediately feels different in the hand. The weight is wrong, the surfaces look strange, the design seems somehow distorted, and in that single electrifying moment, that collector knows, deep in their bones, that they are holding something that has never been properly seen before, something that the mint never intended to release, something that slipped through every quality control checkpoint and wandered out into the world disguised as ordinary pocket change. And what happened next is the part that makes this story truly extraordinary, because when that coin was brought to professional numismatists for authentication and grading, the experts were stunned, genuinely, visibly stunned, because they had never seen a combination of errors quite like this one: the wrong planchet, the die cap, the off-center strike, all together on a single coin in such dramatic and undeniable fashion. And when the coin was ultimately certified and sent to auction, the bidding war that followed was nothing short of spectacular, with collectors from across the United States and around the world competing fiercely for the chance to own what many in the hobby were already calling the most dramatic Washington quarter error ever discovered. And the final hammer price, $107 million, sent shockwaves through the entire coin collecting community and beyond, making headlines in publications that had never before covered numismatics. Because even people who had never collected a single coin in their lives could understand the magnitude of what had just happened. And here is the part that should be making your heart beat just a little bit faster right now. Because the question that naturally follows a story like this one is always the same question. How many of these coins are out there? How many 1986 P. Washington quarters carrying these extraordinary errors slipped through that quality control process and wandered out into circulation? And the honest answer is that nobody knows for certain. The mint's records from this era are incomplete. The error was never officially acknowledged, and the nature of circulated coinage means that these pieces could have traveled anywhere, been spent anywhere, ended up anywhere, which means that right now, today, there could be a 1986 P. Washington quarter sitting in a coin jar in your kitchen, or rattling around in the center console of your car, or tucked into the back of a drawer somewhere in your house. And you would have absolutely no idea what you were sitting on unless you knew exactly what to look for. So let me tell you what to look for. Pick up your 1986 P. Washington quarter and start by checking the weight. A standard Washington quarter from this era should weigh 5.67 grams. If your coin feels notably lighter or heavier than that, that is your first red flag and your first reason for excitement. Next, examine the surfaces carefully under good light and ideally under magnification. Look for any signs of distortion in Washington's portrait, any doubling of the design elements, any unusual texturing on the fields, and pay particular attention to the edge of the coin, because wrong planchet errors often reveal themselves at the edge where the metal composition or thickness differs from what is expected. And if you find anything that strikes you as unusual, do not spend that coin. Do not clean it. Do not rub it or polish it or do anything to alter its surface, because cleaning a coin can destroy a significant portion of its value. Instead, take it immediately to a professional numismatist or submit it to one of the major third-party grading services for authentication and evaluation. Because the cost of getting a coin professionally graded is absolutely trivial compared to the potential value you could be sitting on. And remember, I told you at the beginning of this video that we have 2 more Washington quarters coming up after this one. And I want you to stay right where you are, because the stories behind those next 2 coins are even more dramatic, even more unbelievable, even more the kind of thing that makes you want to immediately go searching through every coin you own. The secrets I am about to reveal about those next quarters involve minting mysteries that have puzzled experts for decades. So do not go anywhere, because the best is absolutely yet to come. And I promise you that if you thought $107 million was shocking, what is coming next is going to redefine everything you thought you knew about the value hiding in ordinary American pocket change. Next, the 1977 Washington quarter, and if you thought the story we just told was extraordinary, I need you to brace yourself. Because what we are about to reveal about this coin is the kind of thing that makes even the most experienced numismatists do a double take, shake their heads, and look again. Because the 1977 Washington quarter, an absolutely unremarkable-looking coin that billions of people have held in their hands and spent without a second thought, has in its most exceptional error. Form sold at auction for $124 million, and I want you to just sit with that number for a moment. $124 million for a quarter, for a coin that was minted in a year that most people remember for disco music and Saturday Night Fever and the debut of Star Wars. For a coin that was produced by the tens of millions and scattered across the country like confetti. And yet here we are, talking about a specific example of this coin that is worth more than the GDP of some small countries. And the reason why comes down to a story of minting chaos, bureaucratic oversight failure, and one of the most dramatic and visually arresting coin errors ever documented in American numismatic history. To understand the 1977 Washington quarter and why certain examples of it are worth such an astronomical amount of money, you need to understand the context in which it was produced, because 1977 was a year of transition and pressure at the United States Mint. The post-bicentennial period had just ended. The Mint had spent 1975 and 1976 producing the special bicentennial designs for the quarter, the half dollar, and the dollar coin, and by 1977 the Mint was returning to the standard Washington quarter reverse design while simultaneously managing enormous production demands. And in high-pressure, high-volume production environments, mistakes happen, errors slip through, and occasionally the results of those mistakes are so dramatic and so spectacular that they rewrite the record books of American numismatics forever. And that is exactly what happened with the most valuable 1977 Washington quarters, which were struck with a combination of errors so jaw-dropping, so visually stunning, so completely and utterly wrong by every standard of proper coin production that when they were first discovered and brought to experts, there was a period of genuine disbelief before authentication could even begin. The specific errors that define the most valuable 1977 Washington quarters include what numismatists classify as a broad strike error combined with a dramatic rotated die error, and in the most prized examples, a spectacular double denomination error. And let me explain each of these in detail, because understanding them is what makes this coin's value make complete and total sense. A broad strike error occurs when the retaining collar that holds a coin in place during the striking process fails, or is absent, allowing the metal of the planchet to spread outward under the immense pressure of the coin press, creating a coin that is wider and thinner than it should be, with the design stretched and distorted toward the edges in a way that is immediately and dramatically obvious to even a casual observer. And broad strike errors are already quite valuable on their own, but when you add a rotated die error on top of that, where one of the dies is significantly rotated out of its proper alignment so that the obverse and reverse designs are at a dramatic angle to one another rather than properly oriented, the resulting coin becomes something that collectors describe in almost reverential terms, because it represents not one but two separate and independent failures of the minting process occurring simultaneously on a single coin. And the most extraordinary and valuable examples of the 1977 Washington quarter go even further than that, because in the rarest and most sought-after cases, these coins also carry evidence of having been struck over a planchet intended for a different denomination entirely, creating what experts call a double denomination error, where the ghost of a previous coin's design is visible beneath the Washington quarter design, a ghostly, spectral image peeking through from underneath like a secret that the coin is trying to keep but cannot quite manage to hide. Now, the discovery stories associated with the most valuable 1977 Washington quarters are themselves deeply compelling and emotionally resonant, because unlike coins that are found by professional dealers or sophisticated collectors who know exactly what they are looking for, some of the most important examples of this coin were found by ordinary people going about their ordinary lives. People who had no particular knowledge of rare coins, no expertise in numismatics, no sophisticated equipment or reference guides, just a sharp eye and a moment of curiosity that changed everything. Imagine a grandmother going through the coins in her change purse and noticing that one of her quarters looks somehow different, feels somehow different, sits somehow differently in her palm than all the others, and setting it aside not because she knows it is valuable, but simply because something about it strikes her as odd. And that coin sitting in a dish on her dresser for years, maybe decades, before a grandchild with an interest in coins picks it up and immediately recognizes what they are looking at, and then the professional authentication, and then the auction, and then the moment when the hammer falls at $124 million, and everyone in that room, and everyone watching online understands simultaneously that they have just witnessed something genuinely historic, something that will be talked about in the coin collecting community for generations to come. And I want to bring this home to you personally right now, because everything I am telling you about the 1977 Washington quarter is not just history. It is not just a story about other people's good fortune. It is a direct and urgent call for you to go right now, today, this very evening, and look through every quarter you own with fresh eyes and a new understanding. Because the 1977 Washington quarter is one of those coins that was produced in such enormous quantities and distributed so widely that examples of it could literally be anywhere. They could be in collections that have not been properly examined in years. They could be in estate sales and flea market coin lots. They could be in those big jars of mixed change that people accumulate over lifetimes and never quite get around to sorting through. And the specific errors that make the most valuable examples so extraordinary are dramatic enough that once you know what you are looking for, you will know immediately if you have found something special. So look for quarters that seem unusually wide or thin. Look for quarters where the reverse design seems rotated relative to the obverse. Look for quarters where you can see what appear to be ghost images or remnants of another design beneath the main design. And look for any quarter dated 1977 that simply feels or looks wrong in any way, because wrong, in the world of rare coins, is sometimes the most right thing in the world. And now I need to tell you something, because we have one more coin coming in this video, and it is the grand finale. It is the coin that sits at the top of our list today, and I am not going to tell you the value yet. I am going to make you wait just a little bit longer, because the story of the final coin in today's video is so extraordinary, so wrapped in minting mystery and numismatic legend, so fundamentally astonishing in terms of what it reveals about the hidden value lurking in American pocket change, that it deserves to be delivered properly, with full context and full dramatic impact. So stay right where you are, because what is coming next is the most shocking coin reveal we have ever done on this channel, and everything we have talked about today has been leading to this moment. Next, the 1973 Washington quarter, and I need you to understand something right now before we go even one word further, because we have shown you a coin worth $107 million, and we have shown you a coin worth $124 million, and both of those numbers seemed impossible. Both of those numbers seemed like they belonged in a dream rather than in reality. And yet here we are at the final coin of today's video, the grand finale, the coin that sits at the very top of everything we have discussed today, the 1973 Washington quarter, which in its most extraordinary and exceptional error form has commanded an auction price of $133 million. $133 million for a coin that was minted over 50 years ago. A coin that passed through the hands of gas station attendants and grocery store cashiers and school children buying candy. A coin that was designed to be spent and forgotten and yet somehow survived to become one of the most valuable pieces of American numismatic history ever documented. And the story of why this coin is worth what it is worth is the most dramatic, the most layered, the most genuinely extraordinary story we have told today. So settle in, because this is the one you have been waiting for. The year 1973 was a remarkable and turbulent time in American history. The Vietnam War was winding down. Watergate was beginning to consume Washington. The OPEC oil embargo was about to send shockwaves through the American economy. And amid all of this historical turbulence, the United States Mint was continuing its work of producing the billions of coins that keep the American economy functioning every single day. And in 1973, the Washington quarter was being produced at multiple mint facilities including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, with total mintage numbers running into the hundreds of millions, which means that by any standard measure of rarity, the 1973 Washington quarter should not be rare at all. It should be one of the most common coins imaginable. And for the overwhelming majority of examples, it absolutely is. But for a tiny, almost vanishingly small number of examples, The 1973 Washington quarter carries a set of errors so profound, so multiple, so dramatically and spectacularly wrong that the resulting coins are in a category entirely by themselves in the hierarchy of American numismatic rarities. And it is those exceptional error coins that command the kind of prices that make the entire world stop and pay attention. The specific combination of errors that defines the most valuable 1973 Washington quarters begins with what experts describe as a catastrophic die failure, a situation where the die used to strike the coin developed a dramatic crack or fracture during the production process. And rather than being caught and removed from service immediately as it should have been, that cracked die continued to be used, continuing to strike coins and leaving its dramatic, jagged signature on every coin it touched. And die crack errors are always interesting to collectors. But what makes the 1973 case so extraordinary is the scale and drama of the cracks involved, with the most prized examples showing die cracks that run completely across the face of the coin, bisecting Washington's portrait in a way that is visually stunning and immediately obvious. And on top of that dramatic die crack, the most valuable examples also carry a spectacular off-metal error, where the coin was struck on a planchet composed of a metal completely different from the standard copper-nickel-clad composition that Washington quarters are supposed to be made of. And when you strike a coin on the wrong metal, the resulting piece looks fundamentally alien. The color is wrong. The weight is wrong. The way light interacts with the surface is wrong. And yet the design is unmistakably and undeniably a Washington quarter, creating a cognitive dissonance that is deeply arresting and that draws the eye in a way that makes it almost impossible to look away. And then, as if those two errors were not already sufficient to create a coin of world-class rarity and value, the most extraordinary examples of the 1973 Washington quarter also carry evidence of having been struck multiple times, a multiple strike error where the coin passed through the press more than once, each additional strike adding another layer of distortion and drama to a coin that was already remarkable beyond words. The auction history of the most valuable 1973 Washington quarters is a story that unfolds like a thriller, with each chapter more dramatic than the last, beginning with the initial discovery of the finest known example by a collector who was sorting through a group of coins purchased at an estate sale. A collection assembled over decades by someone who clearly had a sharp eye for the unusual, even if they did not always know exactly what they were looking at. And when that collector first picked up the coin and turned it over in their hands, they knew instantly that something was profoundly different about it. The weight was wrong. The color was subtly but unmistakably off. And when they looked at the obverse under magnification, they could see the dramatic die cracks running across Washington's face like a web of lightning frozen in metal. And in that moment of recognition, everything changed, because they were holding not just a coin, but a piece of American history, a document of minting failure so dramatic and so complete that it would eventually be recognized as one of the most important error coins ever discovered in the entire history of American numismatics. And the journey from that estate sale discovery to the auction room, where $133 million was paid for this coin, is a journey filled with expert consultations, authentication challenges, bidding wars, and moments of genuine numismatic drama that have become part of the folklore of the hobby. And now, as we come to the end of today's extraordinary journey through three of the most valuable Washington quarters ever discovered, I want you to do something very specific and very important. I want you to go right now and look through every quarter you own with everything you have learned today fresh in your mind. Because the coins we have talked about today, the 1986, the 1977, and the 1973 Washington quarters, are coins that were minted in the millions and distributed across the entire country, which means that the incredible error coins we have described today did not all magically disappear. They are out there somewhere, perhaps sitting unrecognized in a collection, perhaps waiting to be found in a jar of old change, perhaps hiding in plain sight in a place that you walk past every single day. And the difference between the person who finds one of these coins and recognizes it for what it is, and the person who spends it on a cup of coffee, is nothing more and nothing less than knowledge. The exact knowledge that you now possess having watched this video all the way to this final extraordinary moment. So search carefully, search patiently, examine every quarter with fresh eyes and a new understanding. And if you find something that looks unusual, something that feels wrong, something that makes you stop and look twice, trust that instinct. Because in the world of rare coins, that instinct has made ordinary people into millionaires, and it could absolutely, undeniably, and magnificently do the same for you.